Call the meeting to order, 6 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Lassie,
Here.
Derlin,
Here.
Fitzgerald,
Here.
Hannah, here, Jordan,
Here.
King,
Here.
McCusker here, Nolan, Stockton,
Yes, here.
8 present.
Thanks. Minutes of the regular meeting held 17th and 31 and the 31st are attached. Can I have a motion to approve if there's no questions?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Motion and second, any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Over to reports. Is there a student report today? All right. You want to kick it off?
In addition to my written report, I'd like to give a shout out to Madison Williams, who was selected as the May 2022 Student of the Month. And I would also like to again thank the community for their generosity to our graduates. Over $175,000 worth of scholarships is amazing, and we thank them.
Second that. That's pretty cool.
That's
Good.
it.
Dr. Vaughn?
Nothing this evening.
Nothing? Phone in the notes.
Sorry.
Anything for you, Mr. McMillan?
Yeah, just a couple things. O'Connor Tree Service is done with cutting all the trees. You notice that, those look a lot better out there. And we have completed rolling all the sports fields. If I couldn't find a roller anywhere, so Brian Smith, looking from Eagles here,
Yeah.
agreed to loan us his or rent that. So that much is done. The next thing is the area the grounds.
Nice. Thank
So-
you.
I just have a question about that. Like, I know you have field issues as far as they're wet and soggy and stuff like that, but what's the point in rolling the field after the kids aren't using it anymore?
Well, a couple things is, since I've been here, and it's been going on longer than that, I guess, from what I understand, is that to try to roll the fields during the spring or in the early spring, is really not doable because it's so wet. The machine that we use, weighs at least 10 tons. And of course, if you take something like in there when the ground's too damp, too soft, you're gonna bury it, you're gonna make ruts, you're gonna make it worse. So that's usually the reason why none of that stuff is done. This spring was a good example of the same thing.
Well, see, I understand all that, and you just said it, it's been a reoccurring issue for years, so why doesn't something get done? And we're working on that. I
What would you
guess.
suggest?
Well, we're
But my point
this is the first step
you
in starting
spent
it.
money
I mean,
to
we,
roll a field, to roll all the fields, I'm sorry, but nobody's gonna be able to take advantage of it, because by the time fall comes around, they'll need rolled again.
But that benefits the next season. There's no baseball anyway during, in
Exactly,
the
so
fall.
you roll the baseball field now, nobody will use that field again until next baseball season.
yeah,
The
okay.
softball field will be used in the fall, the soccer field will be used in the fall. And my point is why don't you roll them in, find an adequate time in August?
Aaron,
So that way, when the kids are playing on them, they're actually reaping the rewards of what the roller does.
Well, generally,
We-
maybe part of that
wait,
reason also.
we had to start sometime. We didn't do it, so we said we were gonna start all this. This was this whole thing of starting to maintain the field. We have to roll it before we aerate. And we've got soccer out there all summer. We've got Legion ball. We've got Little League that can take advantage of the improved condition of the field. So we're starting, we're doing it. And before the next seasons, we'll do it again. But if we roll it, then we aerate it, and then we fertilize and put seed on it, we can start to develop something out there. I don't want to wait till like the start of the next season and then we're right back. I mean, the community is taking advantage of the improved conditions of the field. I don't want kids out there in the summer twisting an ankle on the soccer field I mean, we have these fields that we need to maintain them and we had to start.
Yeah, I agree. I just
Yeah.
asked the question because I
Yeah.
wanted to know where we're at and what the philosophy on it was, you know?
The other
Because
thing in
maybe-
August,
Yeah.
generally in
If
August.
that's the way it is,
Right.
then, okay, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was like the first step. We had to start with the field because they were miserable. The fields are miserable.
Why not?
So we had to start with that, so then we could aerate, so then we could work on the
Okay.
turf. And then we can come back. I mean, but I wanted to start.
Yep, okay. No, I was just asking the question because it sort of puzzled me, so. Thanks.
You good on that?
Yeah.
So, tech report for the month is that on Thursday, we completed our connection down to the IU via the Zito fiber. So we have a 1 gig internet connection down to the IU now, and we're no longer operating on our Frontier connection as our primary. So that was a multi-year project in the making, required coordination with multiple agencies. At one point, I wasn't sure if they just had one guy out in the state forest with a shovel trenching it for us, but I know there's a lot of paperwork with that. So that was good to see completed. And then I just wanted to thank our staff members that have agreed to help out with tech projects over the summer. We've started receiving equipment, and when I've put out the invites to people to come in and help with those projects, it's been right away. So I'm looking forward to that, and good start to the summer.
Great.
When you say Zito
Zito.
fiber to the IU, what do you mean by the IU? Like our IU?
Yeah, our IU. So our primary internet connection flows through the Williamsport IU-17 office. So they've always been our ISP. They're our primary ISP, but the fiber that they were using was from Frontier. Just like the fiber that we're using now is actually.
It's kind of what I thought. I thought you meant we connected to an IU. I just wanted to make sure it was the same IU I was thinking of.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Yep, it's a single strand of glass from here to Williamsport, 79.4 kilometers, and so there's an amplifier set up on each end. So the nice thing there is for routes that long, usually you have some intermediary steps, and if that equipment has issues, then somebody needs to be sent out. The nice thing is we know that as long as our two ends are up, and those amplifiers are working, if we're seeing an issue in between, you could have like a physical break from like somebody hitting a pole or something like that. But it's nice. It's a really comfortable setup for us. So
Yeah, speed of light's pretty quick.
yes,
That's awesome.
So can we tap into that?
That's kind of where I was going.
So we proved that it was possible, so now it's time to expand on this
Yeah.
fiber connection.
Yeah,
It goes right
so
by our house.
I know.
We're just not allowed to touch it.
Yeah.
But that kind of does, like, we only got it because emergency services
Mhm.
had a grant to bring it. So when you get more subscribers to it, that's when they start sharing those pairs. So, I mean, eventually.
Well, I've tried like on a personal level, and Frontier has the rate so high that nobody wants to touch it. Yeah, like I got people to sign things and everything, and they're like, yeah, sorry.
The courthouse one that goes from LaPorte Courthouse and it communicates with Wyoming County and it runs right down 87.
Mhm.
It's like, come on,
Yep.
be nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I think LaPorte Courthouse is on Zito, right?
they are now. Yeah,
Because Frontier wouldn't hook them up, and their central office is right across the park.
Mhm.
You could hit it with a stone,
Right.
and they wouldn't hook them up.
Mhm. Good stuff.
Progress. Good to go? Anyone else have anything? Doug, you have anything? I do have someone here. I have Audrey Baird from Piper Sandler. She's going to discuss with the board the additional funding for the sports edition. Okay. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah,
Or-
do that first, so she can.
Yep, that's fine. Sure.
I have paper. I know you have this screen up here and you're probably used to more high tech, and I'm not high tech.
And we get plenty of paper.
And you know what? The paper doesn't ever fail me unless I forget it. So it's, someone else has a desire. Someone wants to move along. So thank you for having me. I don't know how much you've discussed about borrowing money again, or if it's a possibility, but I wanted to give a little refresher.
Yeah, most of the board,
Is not gonna, that's why I have the refresher pages. So most of you are new to the idea of this. And last time I was here, we were still meeting in the library, so I know it's been a while. You've been in the auditorium here, I understand, for quite some time for your meetings, but it's good to be back. Got a little tour of the outside, finding the door that was unlocked. But if I can, I'll get into the paperwork. I'll go over a little bit with the payments that you have now and interest rates and maybe a hypothetical option if you decided that you needed to borrow some money. That's good. It's labeled page 2. The cover was counted as page 1. This table represents the payments that you have in place now. So the 3 columns with the blue at the top are the 3 different sets of payments that you have in place now, and the total on the right. Each row is a school year. So you're looking at the first row, that's the school year that ends this week, and you're thinking, I'm crazy, why do I still have that on here? I have it on here for a reason, because the total for this school year is an important number later. So let me explain each column to you here. The one labeled NTCC, that is your school's portion of the loan in place for Northern Tiers renovations. It dates back 2005 when we started working on that. And there's only this current school year and 3 more years left of payments on that, and that one's done. So your payment there, your share, is the $58,000 a year. And again, each number there is an annual total. So you see 58,000, that's 2 interest and 1 principal payment. I just have them added together here for convenience, but it's actually 2 separate payments that you make. Again, so the first column, the Northern Tier. The second column, labeled ACE, that was biomass project, and this school year was the final payments on that. So that one's done. That's good. That one is gone as of next week, end of the school year. And the 2020, the column that runs all the way out to 2040. So you have about 260, and it increases to about 275 a few years of payments. Same as I mentioned earlier, it's 2 interest and 1 principal payment added together here just so we can see the annual totals for convenience. And that was a combination refinancing and some money for some capital projects put in place just about 2 years ago. These are all fixed rates, so they're locked. They won't change. It doesn't matter what happens in the market, you're locked in. And then, of course, the total on the far right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and flip you to page 3 because this page 3 looks a little bit different. This is the same payments after your PlanCon reimbursement. I know you've been thinking about projects, and it may have come up that PlanCon has a moratorium. You cannot file for state reimbursement on new construction projects. They put a hold on it a few years ago. They haven't said when it's coming back, and we all have our own opinions about when it's coming back. They are not funding it. That's the problem. It's money like everything else. However, the Northern Tier project and your 2020 bond issue both receive reimbursement because those projects, the construction happened before the moratorium. So the state's making good on the promises that they made before they put the moratorium in place. So the difference from the numbers on page 2, which is the payment that your business office sends that payment out and then files with P&E for reimbursement, is the difference between the two. So on page 3, that's the net effect to your budget. You make the gross payment, get reimbursed from, Division of School Facilities for the difference. So now that total net debt on the far right, that $286,000 figure, which is the total for this school year, is important because in a future page, I'm going to talk about borrowing money, and that number is going to be important because it's going to stay in place. Any questions about the payments you have now, or why I'm here, or why I did all these things that are on this page years ago? No?
So
Okay.
is that guaranteed to stick till 2040?
Yes. Yes, those are all fixed rates and they're all locked in on purpose. You, at any time, can borrow money with a variable interest rate if you would like. We've not done that with you in the past, but it's certainly your decision. And with a recommendation, comes from the board, I do what you want, but what I'm going to show you tonight is all based on fixed rates. Again, we can explore that if you would want.
You could refinance the existing. I don't know why you would, since it was only 2 years ago.
Oh, no, you don't want to do that.
We did that at probably the best rates.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's going to be obvious on page 4. That's why I put this in here, but page 4. Now, this interest rate on this chart is not the actual interest rate that you would pay. This is a weekly index. It's a nationwide interest rate, and it's based on 25 years. Why I wanted you to see this, again, it's not the actual exact rate you're going to pay, is the trend. So this is municipal bond rates, and if you look, right corner, you can see in 2020, we hit all-time lows. And no matter how many years back I take this graph, it gets higher and higher. It doesn't get lower. So 2020 was all-time lows for bond rates. So the fact that you have that locked in, I'm not saying you'd never be able to refinance it and save money, but you can tell by looking at this chart, it was a good time. We knew at the time it was the lowest rates ever, but who knew if they were going to go even lower? But they didn't, so we did pretty good with the timing on that. And if you look inside the orange box, it's still on page 4, the one-year snapshot for 2021, interest rates stayed pretty level. Of course, there's always ups and downs, but stayed pretty level. And you can see in the one-year snapshot that starting in January this year, municipal rates, just like you hear about in the news, just like your interest rate on your mortgage, everything else has been ticking up. So they have gone up. And in the one-year snapshot, it looks a little more dramatic than it is, because if you look in the bigger graph, we're still around 3% for a 25-year bond, which is, historically speaking, still not very high. So I wanted to show you that and point out your 2020 refinancing. The next page, just a comparison, in case there is any interest. I won't bore you to tears, but all of the debt that you have outstanding is tax exempt, meaning the purchasers don't pay income tax on the interest you pay them. It's tax-free because you're a school. So it's one of the benefits. The IRS says, okay, you can issue debt and it can be tax-free for the investors. It's to help you as a school get lower interest rates. However, you can issue taxable debt in certain circumstances. That would be the orange chart, or excuse me, the orange line. And what's interesting here is the only time the blue, you see the big difference between the blue and the orange, was right around your refinancing. But since we had the tax exempt rates, it worked out and saved you some money. Any questions about that? Put you to sleep. Okay, so what you care about the most is page 6. Now, column 2 on page 6 looks very familiar because that was the total that I showed you earlier. That's your, I'll call it your do-nothing payments. They're all fixed rate, they're locked. This is what you've committed to, column 2. Now, what if you need $1 million for projects? And there's nothing magical to $1 million. It can be higher or lower, but I had to start with a number. So I'm showing you here, what if you needed $1 million into your construction fund? What might those payments look like? Now, the $92,000 in the top row there, you see school year 22-23, the budget you just approved, a potential payment on this $1 million of just under $93,000. Now, that number was on purpose. This is what you've been budgeting for. This is what is budgeted for, $93,000. So I got as close to 93 without going over. And you'll see the next couple of years, it stays right in that same range, $90,000. And then in 2026, when those payments you have in place get a little bit lower, I'm looking at column 2, so 2025 to 2026, your existing payments start to drop off, so the new payments can get a little bigger and fill that in. So if you look at column 5, which is the total, we're gonna stay right at what you have in your budget now, which is the 274 plus the 92, you have 93,000 in your budget for new payments. And then it stays as close as we can keep it. We can't stay exactly dollar for dollar. Interesting. Get it as close as we can. And then your payment stays the same to 2034 and then starts to drop off. And the last few years, from 2036 to 2040, are the payments you already have in place. So the new payments end in school year 34, 35. Now, if you said we need to make the payments longer and a little bit smaller, you can do that. If you say we can afford to make the payments a little bit bigger and pay it over less years, pay the interest quicker, we can do that too. But how I got to this number was keeping the $93,000 budget figure that you've already allocated. But if you say, you know what, we can do $200,000 a year, we can shorten the term of the payments, which in turn saves you interest. Works just like your home mortgage. You have a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage. You're still paying back the same principal. You're just paying more interest because you're paying it for a longer period of time. This works the same way.
What's the term on the million?
It's through 2035. So if you look at column 3,
Yeah.
your last payment is in school year 34, 35.
Seems like an odd number. I just thought maybe
It was, I backed into how many years based on the $93,000.
okay, so it was just like the
Budget number.
leftover was
Right,
based on
right.
the-
But if you said, we want to pay it off by 2033, or we want to pay it off, we want to extend it all the way to 2040, you certainly can do that. I backed into this based on that $93,000 so that you don't have any additional budget impact, because this is what you've already allocated. Okay. What other questions do you have?
Doug, what is the, based on what we know, what value are we looking at right now required? Because I know it went up.
He's looking at right around 2 million, he said, with contingency. And we have 1.297, I believe. And then, you know, we still have some kind of reserve that we could use.
So this is not far off from what we did.
This particular figure, again, puts $1 million in your bank account. If you need a little less or a little more, we can take a look at what the term would be.
So the 1.2, is it 1.29?
Yeah, 1.29, I think that's what's. on
And then the
report.
fund reserve, would we want to touch that, or we would want to?
You know, I'm just saying, you know, it would be safe if we'd do 1.2, you know what I mean? It's better to have a little bit more than, you know, and then if it runs 2.2, then we'd still have a little,
What's
You never know when the well pump goes.
yeah.
what's the rate on the million based on this hypothetical?
This is based on 4.25, which rates went up last week. I had some bank loan quotes, this is based on a bank loan quote, come in right before the Fed's hike, and they were 3.92. So I did go up because interest rates have gone up about 0.35 since I had those quotes early last week. So there was a little bit of, you know, assumption on my part to go from the 3.92 that was before the 0.75 hike.
I mean, we could go 1.2 and then add a couple of years to it to make the payments.
I'm with you, I'd rather not. I'd rather leave a
Just a little
reserve.
You never know. Price of diesel might skyrocket.
Did you say the price of diesel is going to plummet?
That's exactly what I said. See, you start that rumor, it'll catch on.
It's going way down. That's what I heard on the news this morning. But, so obviously, this is the rates that I'm seeing now. If you decided to move ahead, it takes a couple of weeks to get bids. Is it going to be a little bit higher or a little bit lower than what I'm showing you? Yeah, it's not going to be exactly this, but for today's assumptions, I had to do the best I could with what's happened in the last week. What other questions do you have? If this is something you're interested in moving ahead because you have the projects and you know you need the funds, I would put together an RFP and send it to banks and get proposals back. And obviously, we're gonna look at the lowest cost provider because the banks are gonna quote a rate, and we would specify, unless you tell me different, that it has to be a fixed rate. Because for the term of 2035, they should do it. A lot of times the banks don't wanna give a fixed rate longer than 10 years on these types of loans. Well, we're not that much over 10 years.
I think we need to go forward with RFP.
And the dollar amount would be, the dollar amount total plus, are we sticking with the $93,000 annual, or did you feel comfortable with something lower or higher than that on a budget basis?
Yeah, 1.2, I mean, do you think you could go 15? 15 years?
Well, you can make it 20 years if you wanted to, and you'll get proposals. You might not get them from the smaller banks. The longer loans, you're going to have the bigger, the M&T, the Citibank, the Wells, the bigger banks will bid on it. As far as your local banks, I know CNN will do it, First National will do it. A lot of the local ones will bid on it to 15 years. They might not be as aggressive on the interest rate because it's risk for them, so they have to weigh that out. One way to find out is to just ask, and a key thing that I should point out is if I go out and get quotes and you don't like them, you say no thank you. You don't have to accept one. You don't have to do that. We just have to give them enough time to do their credit review and provide a good bid, and then you see the best ones. You see all of them, and you decide if you want to accept them or not, but there's no obligation to do that just because we put out a proposal.
Yeah, let's move forward.
You guys good with that? We don't need a motion to request it.
Because we're not actually borrowing.
Right, exactly.
No, I just
Yes or
need
no
some
vote.
direction
Right.
what you'd like me to do. That's all.
Yeah,
I just
right.
need direction from the board.
So you feel more comfortable, Doug, with a 15 versus 12? So I would say, you know the numbers better than all of us.
Yeah, I don't know where the economy's gonna go, you know what I mean? I don't wanna stress the budget too much, I know
I don't want
it
to
extends it, however,
interest rates are going.
yeah.
When you figure that out, can you let me know?
Yeah.
Well,
You got petroleum rates and interest rates coming out of this end of the table. 15 years and the deposit amount.
1.2.
Okay. That's the comfort level. And again, the proposal, I want to make it as close to what you're looking for as possible, because I'll give them a principal amortization, the payment schedules to quote on. It doesn't have to be exactly that when we lock it in, but we want to give them something as close as possible. That's why I'm asking. You're not committed to 1.2, you're not committed to anything. I just want to put an accurate proposal to the banks.
2.2, we still have.
15 years.
It's like a couple hundred. Okay.
What other questions do you have? I know this is new process for most of you, so I'll give the 30-second debt overview if that's okay. How the process works. As a school, when you borrow money, we have to file with the state, with DCED, Department of Community Economic Development, for approval. They have a 20-day process. They might look at it on day 4, they might look at it on day 19, but you're not getting approval till the 20th day regardless. That's just how it works. You have to submit with them for approval. One of the things they look at, that total, that column 5, we're only allowed 5% year over year change in payments. So it's good for your budget. You want your payments to be as close as possible, so you're budgeting consistently, but we also are required to do that. We can go down, but you can't go down and come back up. So the last few years, that drop off is fine. So those are some of the requirements. There's also a newspaper advertisement that has to appear before you vote. There's one vote of the school board on the resolution, which incorporates everything that has to happen, accepting the bank loan proposal, filing with DCED. It takes care of everything, but that one action does have to be advertised one time in the local paper 3 days before your meeting. So you will see one ad saying that, you know, the school is going to consider a debt incurring resolution because you're borrowing money, it's debt. And then if the resolution is approved, another ad has to go in the paper saying that you approved it. It's part of the state law to inform your citizens of things you're doing. So you don't have to do anything, I just want everybody to know you're going to see this advertisement in the paper, you know, about 3 days prior to the meeting where you're going to vote. Other than that, it's some paperwork for this guy, this guy, and me. But there's just one action item that will come to the board at an advertised meeting.
Sounds good.
What other questions do you have?
So, I mean, we're well under that 1% at that. Or under the 5%.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you said 1%. I said,
Yeah.
what's 1%?
No, I meant 5%.
The interest rate on
That's
commas.
what we want to learn for.
Yeah. What's that?
That's what we want to learn for.
I wish. I mean, if we could do that, I'd be,
So is there
I wouldn't
any,
be
is there any
sleeping.
restrictions on prepayment penalties or refinance penalties
It's a
or
great question.
anything?
I'm
so
glad you
that-
brought that up. I'll put it in the proposal because we can spell it out in the RFP what we want. And we're going to ask for 30-day callable anytime, prepay anytime with 30-day notice. And the 30-day notice is because it takes that long for the paperwork. So you give the bank 30 days notice that you want to pay it off at any time.
And then that would give us the freedom to refinance if necessary, if the interest rates change at some point. It's
Right,
better than
exactly.
4.25.
If interest rates drop again, like they did 2 years ago, you can pay it off and save some interest, or you get a big endowment and you want to pay it off cash. Nobody laughed at that. I thought I get at least one chuckle. I'm waiting for one chuckle.
Could happen.
Get a big $50 million endowment, want to pay it off. What else? Nope.
Timing.
Timing. The banks usually want 2 to 3 weeks to review a proposal, so we'll put it out this week and come back and have results for a July meeting. If you have a July meeting
Yeah,
scheduled?
July.
If you, I mean, I'm just, you guys can, if you feel that there's a risk at waiting for the July meeting for a decision, our board doesn't have an issue with, I think there's a virtual option if we had to, because we've done it for.
Oh,
a year and
to
a
do the
half.
special meeting?
So if there was, if there's a requirement for a special meeting to move something ahead, I think we would be in favor of that potential, so as fast as you can make it happen, because otherwise
Yes.
we risk like the 20 day.
You are risking it because we would have to have the proposals due a couple days, probably 2 days at the most before you're voting on it, because the banks will say this is good for 3 days. They're not gonna hold a rate longer than that. So the proposal, when I put it out, I will back into a meeting date. So if you wanna have a special meeting, or maybe, I don't know if you have a work session or anything that we could convert to a voting meeting earlier, then we get the rates locked in quicker. That's up to you as a
Yeah,
board
if
if
you
you
wanna
want
just
to meet.
communicate that
Yeah,
with
just
us.
let me know when you think a good date is, and then I'll let you.
Yes, and because
And then
it's
that
debt,
gives us
we
enough
do,
time
we do have
to
to have
advertise?
6 of you.
You'll do the advertising, correct?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you won't have to, we'll take care of all of that.
Well, if we do a special meeting, does that
We
give
will
us enough
also.
time to advertise for the
Yeah, that's
special
what I
meeting?
was-
It's only 24 hours.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know your local paper's turnaround time.
Yeah, but you have to,
So you
3
know
days
that
before the
every-
meeting, you have to have our local paper, which only comes out once
That's a
a week.
different one. Right, yeah.
Okay.
Right, the bond
So,
resolution.
we
needs
could miss,
to-
if we do it on Wednesday, then you gotta wait 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm counting
That's
the
fine.
The notice would have to be given to our newspaper, I think Monday, because I think they come out Tuesday, right?
Yes.
It's any newspaper of general circulation, so it's,
I've always questioned though, like, we restrict our timing on emergency situations on Sullivan Review's cycle, so if we can hit that, great, but if there's, I think if we're in a situation where that, I mean, usually they're very good about, I mean, there is a cutoff where it's like, okay, to the printer, but
Right.
they're usually pretty good with,
Shoving our little.
yeah, I mean, if
it's
there's,
a weekly.
I mean, we could go almost to a critical deadline and they would still get it in if it's something.
We're too small is to have more than weekly.
Everybody's weekly anymore, at most two. Most of them are, not enough.
It is.
Oh, I love that.
It's one of those, yeah,
Absolutely,
Well, I mean, we could have a proposal out, we could have bids back as early as July 6th if you wanted to have a meeting earlier than the 19th, which you don't have to decide right this moment. If you want to just discuss that amongst yourselves, you can let me know.
And it's business days, right?
Just 2 weeks, it's, I'm not, you're worried about 4th of July being in there?
No, yeah, in the 3-day.
Oh, for the advertisement, it's 3 calendar days, yes, yes. So if what day does the paper come out? You said the cutoff is Monday?
Yeah, for a Wednesday.
So it's published on Wednesday. So we could
Yeah,
probably
Julie
get an
comes out
ad in
Tuesday
for the
night.
6th.
General
Right.
circulation.
You could put the ad in on the 29th. It's not 3 days, it's a minimum of 3 days. So we could put the advertisement in the paper on the 29th and meet anytime within 30 days of that.
Yeah. There's a lot of information to be able to achieve that.
Because that advertisement's good for up to 30 days. So then that gives us flexibility if you decide to call a special meeting, or we can still use that ad for your meeting on the 19th.
Sounds good.
I don't see interest rates going down, if that's where you were going with that line of questioning. I
No.
don't see any of
I'm not even
them
a
going
financial
down.
advisor now, can tell you.
No, I've heard stories of, and may have been part of stories in regards to like hours, not days, like missed signing it by 5 PM and it was null and void. And had
Well,
to be
that's what I was getting at with the 3 days from the due date of the proposals. So we will back into that based on your meeting date, what you
Okay.
decide. I think there's no reason not to put the ad in next week, since it's good for a month. We know at the latest, you'll meet the 19th.
Yeah.
Everybody's okay with that? So you know, you've been warned, you'll see this, and your neighbors are gonna say, what are you doing when they see the ad?
Yeah, good idea.
There you go.
And your office is okay with all of that?
We'll make it
I'll
work.
put you on the spot right now.
No, we'll make it work.
Okay,
Thanks for taking a walk with me.
yeah. Good to get the tour and get the doors in there. If anything else comes up, let me know. Any other questions, don't hesitate.
Yeah, thanks
I
for
know
putting it
it's new
together.
and it's a lot of money and it's big decisions. Big decisions. I'm glad you put it in your budget already. I wish get some of the other school boards to do that. Plan ahead.
All right. Anything else, Doug?
No, I mean, we have the comp plan. Does the board have questions from the comp plan documents that were provided last week? Someplace you want to start from?
What was your question, Doug?
The comp plan. Do you have any questions from the comp plan documents that were provided last week? We printed them out. They're all in your folder again. Yeah. We have the comp plan, the special ed plan, the Act 48, and the induction plan. Those are what were provided last week, but we provided them again, so you can go through them. I mean, it's up to the board if you want us to go through this. We'll run through it quick. So the comp plan is put in, and I I have this back here behind me. This is just the tool that created the documents that are in front of you. So, the comp plan starts out and they have different, the ready is just preparing the plan. It's just the profile of the district that we had to put together. The steering committee was selected, and these are all the people that were selected and participated in the steering committee meetings that were held. The LEA profile. This is just, you've probably seen this many times before. It's the same as what the county description is. It just describes the municipalities, the size, and just a little bit of historical references and summary references for the county. And that should be in there. The mission and vision, this is what was started work last October, and this is what we had arrived at. The mission of the Sullivan County School District is to educate, engage, and empower our Griffin family. The vision is the vision of the Sullivan County School District is to instill in all students a desire to learn, create, and apply critical thinking for lifelong, wearing wrong glasses, and apply critical thinking for a lifetime through just, fair, and caring quality instruction and leadership while reflecting community values. So, then we have educational values, and these are really for students. All students will succeed academically given time, effort, and support. All students will study a challenging curriculum that applies to their learning to everyday situations, thereby enhancing the student's social, emotional, and ethical development and deepening their commitment to character, citizenship, and community. Staff. All teachers will focus their instruction on high-quality student work that meets local, state, and national standards. All teachers will focus professional development on improving student learning by raising the level of expectation to the use of best practices. Administration. The administration will ensure that all students will have the opportunity to thrive in a just, fair, and caring learning environment that fosters confidence and a sense of belonging. And all students will be provided with the technology to discover diverse cultures, expand career opportunities, and prepare for the workforce. And parents, all families will be invited as partners to the educational process. The community, the school community will provide a supportive partner in education, ensuring our students become productive and caring members of society. So then it went on to SET. That's when we had our first steering committee where we went through the Future Ready Index to determine where we're starting from. The steering committee to gain the aspect of staff and teachers and community members and students as to where they thought we need our goals developed and improvements. The related academics were essentially career readiness, let's see, I'll go back to the Future Ready Index. So you list your strengths and weaknesses. Essentially, it's all getting to setting our goals. And then we get to go. And analyzing strengths and challenges. Foster a vision and culture of high expectations for success for all students, educators, and family. Establish and maintain a focused system for continuous improvement and to ensure organizational coherence. Engage in meaningful two-way communication with stakeholders to sustain shared responsibility, for student learning across the district. Support schools in implementing evidence-based instructional strategies and programs to ensure all students have access to rigorous standards-aligned curriculum, and coordinate and monitor supports aligned to student needs and family needs. And a lot of this was what, if you had listened to what Mary Elise was saying, this is what she wanted. She wanted something that would develop goals that would be able to track and manage progress. And then ways to analyze our strengths, the PSSA, the district keystone, partner local business community organization, determine their needs for developing students for the workforce, coordinate with fiscal resources, local, state, and federal programs to develop those goals and priorities. A lot of it has to do, what we determined is really, we have to realign our curriculum, we have to rewrite our curriculum. We have to change our testing from what we've been doing, and we need to re-sequence our courses so they align with the tests that we're taking. So we're being strategic with how we're going to provide education in order that students get the courses they need when they need them. Then it goes to goal setting. Community engagement, that's something that came out in the surveys that we had, that we need to be more engaged. And this isn't just, messages on the phone. This is having parents come in to go over how grade books work and how those classroom systems work. And us developing a framework for when parents can look for new grades or how to read averages. All of that back and forth, so we eliminate a lot of that confusion when it comes to grading, is to standardize the expectations for the teachers and to provide guidance and instruction to the parents for the systems that we're using. Because we kind of did it, through COVID, we started using all these communication systems, but never really engaged the families in how they worked and what they were trying to provide. So if we can do that, then it's not just you can check for your grades. It's actually, this is how the grades are developed. This is when the teachers submitted them. This is what they should average out to. And
You can
this is,
see what they're missing.
yeah, if you guys want to add.
Well, there was one thing that you talked about was gearing our academic courses to meet the needs of our community's workforce needs. How are we measuring that? Have you done anything with that? Is that something we have here?
Well, this is just the first goal for communication. So provide student-centered support system. This is the school-wide positive behavior. So we can start to establish K through 12 a system of behavior management for students, so we can have more positive outcomes than kind of the punishment-based.
I can address Anthony's question. So in the information that we collected in our needs assessment, our career readiness is pretty good. An area that wasn't probably adequate is like how many kids are we sending to tech for those jobs that need to be filled right now in this area.
Okay, so there was some research done. I remember us talking about it.
But-
It wasn't like the top.
Like this pulls that list, makes you pull out like, here's your 3 weaknesses, how are you gonna address them? So it's not like these are the only things we're gonna address, but the comp plan focuses on these 3 issues.
Yeah.
But we did some informational meetings to students, provide some more field trips to the VOTEX, to NTCC, and our numbers are up for next year, so.
And, there's kind of a backstory to all of this, and that's to keep kids in classroom more, and have them be productive when they're in the classroom. And so having these behavior programs, I believe in the long term is going to help us.
What's the, when's the submission deadline for the
August.
comprehensive? August.
And here, essential practice, the focus on continuous improvement of instruction. So the first year is to rewrite the curriculum and align. Second year, analyze and interpret. Because after you do that, it's actually, at the end of next year, we'll see the difference that it made from the current year. So we started to get some preliminary data for the PSSA testing. So we know that we have improvements to make. So we're making those changes, and fortunately, we were sending it in as soon as we received it, or the test materials, so that we could get some PSSA data back this summer. So,
In the past, we've rewritten curriculum to what we thought would be aligning with the state standards, but never went back and reviewed them and analyzed them to see if it worked in an organized fashion. I mean,
Never came back
individually.
full circle.
yeah, so, and then year 2, we'll take what our changes were in the upcoming year, in the 22-23 school year. We're going to analyze the data we have. We're going to rewrite the curriculum for this coming year, and realign those courses. And then at the end of next year, we'll analyze and interpret the, and throughout the year, we're going to be using some new testing. You want to describe it?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So at the elementary and high school level, we've been discussing, what diagnostic assessments are we going to be using, what progress monitoring are we going to be using, and what data would be meaningful, as opposed to just collecting data to say we have it, but not really using that to drive instruction. So although it sounds like target year 2 is the only year that data is being utilized, Doug hit on it, that's more of a piece of just actually assessing and keeping the ongoing audit of the curriculum occurring. But as far as the elementary school, we're going to be continuing with the DIBELS, Acadians, reading screenings by our reading specialists. We are going to be adding in STAR Math. We already have STAR Reading. Of course, we have local assessments, so we are looking at creating those schedules, those timelines, how we're going to use the data, when we're going to be using it. So that's a huge piece that's ongoing through all of the years in this goal.
Thanks.
So then the other piece to this is the other plans. You'll see the associated plans are the special, or the student services, which is Randy's special ed, the induction plan, and the professional development.
Doug, I did have a couple things with the special ed plan that I wanted to point out
Okay.
that I thought you might have questions on when you were looking through your packet. On the initial page that talks about the total number of students receiving special education services, I wanted to point out that that includes any exceptionality. So that also includes students who only receive speech services. So when you're looking at that total number, just keep in mind that some of the services that students receive are pretty minimal, but they are included in that because they want everyone that has an IEP. And also you will see as you flip through that their first few pages don't have a lot of information because it says indicator not flagged at this time. This is all generated by the state. This is information that they gave to us. So where it says no indicators were flagged, that's good news because that is not an area that we need to address because there's no issues according to the state in those areas. and we actually did not have any of the areas that needed to be addressed at this time. So every single one says that it was not flagged, it was not something we needed to address. Similarly, it says that all monitoring, corrective action, and improvement plans have been completed. That is referring to the compliance monitoring that the state does. That is also cyclical. So when they came in to do the special education monitoring, this happened a couple of years ago. When they came in, we had very, very minimal corrections that we needed to make at this time, and this is just saying all of that has been addressed. There's nothing we need to look at this time. I also wanted to point out on page 11, it talks about 1306 facilities. And you may not be familiar with this because we don't have any in the area. Examples of this would be like detention homes and drug and alcohol treatment centers. If we had those in the school district, we would be responsible for educating the students that are in those facilities, but we don't have any. I just had to address it in there anyway because it's one of the tabs. And then throughout the rest of it, you'll see some information about teacher caseloads. You'll see some information about classrooms. A lot of these things are approximations because teachers in special education there's prescribed numbers of students that are allowed on caseloads. So I work with Mark Ishman from the Bureau of Special Education to make sure that we're in compliance with all of these areas. The reasons they're approximations are because students move in and out, throughout the school year. So this is about how many students, this teacher has, that, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. And those were just the things that I wanted to point out. There's also some training information in there. Some of that overlaps with other parts of the plan, but it's just some areas of training that we're going to focus on moving forward. Does anyone have any questions about that part specifically?
And to piggyback off of Dr. Zawadi talking about the training, the other two pieces of the comprehensive plan that we haven't hit on, but we did briefly, was the induction plan. That has been included in your packets as well. That's just kind of making our process for onboarding our teachers and supporting them during their first year, like what we can do better as a district, how we can help them. And the professional development plan, Act 48, we actually have an Act 48 committee. We met throughout the year. We did surveys with staff to see where their needs are as well as their interests lie for professional development. And this portion also supports all of our goals. So the professional development that is necessary to make our goals happen are included in the Act 48 plan as well.
So does this include when I asked, like when we have a new teacher that comes in
That's the
and,
induction plan.
Yep, that'd be the
and
intention.
yeah, they weren't sure on how quickly grades had to be uploaded into the system and stuff like that. That's all in that? Or will it be?
They do include it in the plan as a needs assessment.
Okay.
I think what both of us have talked about doing in the upcoming year, this is something they did years ago but haven't done it in the last 10 years or so. When we have new teachers coming on board, meeting with them before school starts, so that it's not when everything is up and running and they've got so much to do, and sitting with their mentors and going over those types of procedures, and giving them as much information as we can ahead of time.
Right.
Yeah, that will be huge.
It will be.
Big thank you to our new staff this year for being patient with
And some of them were hired the night before school started or after school started,
induction
so
process.
that was not possible this past year.
So this is on the agenda tonight, but it's like the budget. It goes and it sits for 28 days. It'll be in the district office and the public library in New Shore. It'll be available for public review and then come back in July and then we'll approve for submitting it. So.
And it also doesn't mean if something comes up in the next 2 years and we're like,
Right.
we really need to
Yeah,
address
it's
this,
supposed
that
to
we
be a
can't
living
address it.
document. You're
This
supposed
is
to make
just a
changes
focus
as it goes along.
so that we have goals and we are working in a direction and everybody knows what direction we're working in.
Any other questions?
So let me just for clarity for everybody, with this, the progressive approval process, so there's a preliminary approval today, and then change can occur up until July, essentially. Not saying, I mean,
Well, I mean, you know, we tried to do it ahead of time. So like if, you know, it's due by the end of August.
Because if we make a change, does that have to sit for another?
No,
No.
I mean, because that went through the review. That's part of the review, so.
I'm just curious as far as the timing, because I think that.
No, I didn't want to put the board under pressure that, you know, it's got to be, you know, we've got some time to.
And even with that August due date, it's the submission of the board minutes approving, so it would actually be the July board minutes approving the contract that we submit in August. It's not just the plan.
Okay. Because I think it'll be good for I guess because one thing we had talked about, which I see there, you had one parent on the steering committee, is it would be nice to, if we get feedback, great. If not, to have the parent.
The problem was we could only list them as one thing. So if they had another role.
So, yeah, we tried to like get some teachers that were parents, but not just those, that were involved with the school.
But
And we invited,
Yeah.
you know, them and their surveys, the parents, like the community and family surveys we did, that information was all collected and.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this, at least in the past, there were surveys that just were surveys to say we did a survey, but it was never used, they disappeared, I have no, you know, so I think that the fact that we did a survey and plan on doing more, I think is important.
And we shared the results of the survey with the steering committee. We went over those things.
Yeah, and you were able, for the most part, I mean, you had different outliers, but you could funnel them most of them into these 3 goals. So I think, you know, during the review process, we really encourage families and community members to get out and view it, come in and view it, give us your feedback, because you gave it in the beginning, we'd like it throughout the entire process, so.
You have to remember that the surveys for this were those documents that were about 300 pages long and were printed out to review. So.
All right, you guys have any questions at this point?
Not at this point. I'm sure some are gonna come up with more if we do it again and again and again.
Is this PDE format that you have to go through as far as the electronic version, that you
Yes.
submit it electronically
Yeah.
at this point?
And according to that, they change it every time you have to resubmit, so you have to redo everything. So
Yeah, it's a different platform.
every 3 years, it's a different format.
There'd
So
be no other way,
Yeah,
right?
it's not a rehash of what was done before because.
It's not a
everything's-
copy and paste.
Think of it as zero-based budgeting. That's what you're supposed to be doing. I mean,
You can't just change the date. All right, so, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to,
No?
did you want to go over any of the other?
No?
What's that? Did you have an announcement?
No,
Alright, just checking. Is there any public input
Nothing
at this point?
online.
All right, so we have to go into an executive session, which I usually don't like to do because we bring that up all the time in the middle of a meeting, but for personnel reasons, we actually have to go into a short executive session. We'll be back as soon as possible. I don't know I guess it's easier for us to probably move than trying to shut everything down. Do you know, can we just go into the?
Yeah, I'll take my keys.
I have to.
where's the budget on this?
The first page.
All right, we'll continue on. We went into a short executive session. Finance?
Okay. I would like to make an omnibus version for the finance for items A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, and R. Q and R. Say?
Second.
We have
Have a motion and a second. Is there any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, my next motion would be, the Finance Committee recommends the 22-23 General Fund Budget, PDE 2028, be approved at $17,529,457 as presented, and I so move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on item E. Roll call, please.
Glossy,
Yes?
Derlin,
Yes.
Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
McCusker, yes. Nolan, Stockdale.
Yes.
8 yeses, 1 not present.
Motion carried.
Okay, that is all I have for finance.
Efficient. Athletics and health.
Yes, for athletics and health, I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
I'll second that. And can you explain what the amendment is and the reason?
The amendment will be to make a resolution to approve the Booster Club to acquire a small game of chance. And we were just informed that the Booster Club will need this to prevent any lapse in their license coverage.
Can I have a second?
Yeah, I second.
I do have a second. Okay. Motion and a second, sorry. Anybody have any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried to be added.
All right. Item A, the Athletics and Health Committee recommends acceptance with a letter of regret, a letter of resignation from Matt Muethler as the girls varsity assistant head coach, or assistant soccer coach, I apologize, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And
Motion
B-
carried.
Oh, sorry. Item B, the Athletics and Health Committee recommends acceptance with regret, letter of resignation from Matt Muethler as the junior high assistant soccer coach, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The Athletics and Health Committee recommends the approval to add Matt Muethler to the list of volunteer coaches, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The Athletics and Health Committee recommends approval of Katie Rosa Martier as the freshman class advisor, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The Athletic and Health Committee recommends the approval for the Booster Club to renew their small games of chance license, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item F is only informational, and as the health and safety plan has been reviewed with no changes at this time. That is all for athletics and health.
Thank you. Buildings and grounds?
Item A, the Buildings and Grounds Committee recommends approval of an MHE amendment to the original agreement based on the final description, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? I have a question. So,
Yes.
did we get the final plans yet from them on the changes?
That's what
That was in that package?
Yeah, that's like the intermediate plans that they have right there. That was as new as last Monday.
Yeah, we got them Tuesday.
Okay.
last Tuesday.
Did they add, they were gonna
First, they give
add,
you the old plan, and you go a couple pages, it gives you the revised plan.
Yeah.
Maybe
The
I
water
missed the revised
closet,
plan.
when
Yeah.
I looked in there, I thought that I saw the door was changed. Joe had brought that up, actually, today when he was here, and I'll follow up to make sure it's delineated as a, yeah, or what do you call
unisex
Utility
restroom?
room,
it? No,
So feel like we're playing bingo.
yeah, when you have a change to a plan, an alternate, a bid alternate.
Oh,
Yeah.
it has to be with.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's the bid alternate,
Okay, I was just,
yep.
I saw
yeah,
the
'cause I
proposal,
thought-
but it didn't change, like the proposed,
Yeah, because I
don't-
thought we were gonna get like
I don't see where they,
the difference in dollar amounts that way
Well,
versus.
they haven't bid it yet. I mean, he could design it and he could give the spec to the person that bids it.
I see, okay.
And then they'll bid it based on the requirements of the space.
okay. So we'll wait for the additional plans, but we have a motion and a second. Are there any additional questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item B, Building and Grounds Committee recommends approval of Piper Sandler placement agreement agent and engagement letter, and I so move. Second. Go around.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And I put this over in Buildings and Grounds out of finance simply because it's gonna be the capital project fund and it's really in Buildings and Grounds, so.
Item C, information, use of facilities requests have been received from district organizations, the Sullivan County Soccer for the soccer fields, gym, weight room, and hallways, the Sullivan County High School Spring Art Show and Concert, the auditorium, cafeteria, and hallways. Item D, Building and Grounds Committee recommends approval of use of school facilities requests from Sullivan County Action for the annual health fair for the use of the Sullivan County Elementary classrooms, gym, and cafeteria, October 21st, 2022, from 3:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., and October 22nd, 2020, from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Curriculum?
The Curriculum and Student Activities Committee recommends approval of the district's comprehensive plan, induction plan, and Act 48 plan of 2022 to 2025. The plans will be available for public review at the district office in the Sullivan County Library. And I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Informational item, a list of elementary and high school books for disposal is available at the district office. NC, the Curriculum and Students Activities Committee recommends acceptance of the Student Assistance Letter of Agreement and MOU for the 2022-2023 school year, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Number 12, personnel. Personnel Committee recommends approval of the list of ESY positions. Marcy Higley pending approval. Stacy Strabilla, Sherry Rex, high school summer school and elementary summer school teachers, Alice Carpenter, Deborah Linder, and Ryan Hemberry. And paraprofessionals, Shanda Devlin, Megan Bohinski, Amber Strain, Karen Ryder, Annette Pinella, Angela DeRocco, Randy Holmes, Doug Yunkin, and Leona Krul, sorry if I mispronounced that, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The Personnel Committee recommends approval of the list of certifications of completion for the Teacher Induction Program. McKenna Bagley, Samantha Snyder, Dana Heinrich, Ryan Sagady, Caitlin Ellis, Seth Stoner, Stephanie Snyder, and Taylor Baldwin, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do you have item B? Do you see item B on your agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Opposed?
Sorry, I skipped that one. Item B,
So C is progressed and carried. So go ahead.
so now I go back to B.
Yeah.
The Personnel Committee recommends approval to post and advertise for the anticipated high school technology education teacher, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The Personnel Committee recommends acceptance with letter of regret, with regret, a letter of retirement from Linda Beaver as a cafeteria employee effective August 14th, 2022, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And I just want to say, it was mentioned at the committee meeting, but Linda had, what was it, like 30 years of service with us, so thank her for all of her service.
Agreed.
The Personnel Committee recommends the addition of Taylor Baldwin to the list of approved event staff workers, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
F, the Personnel Committee recommends approval to hire Marcy Higley as the high school special education teacher at a starting salary of $73,653 for step 1, master's plus 39 credits, with a start date of August 22nd, 2022, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And just, you
Do
probably
a roll
noticed Ms.
call.
Jordan left, so now you're 7.
Oh, okay, thank you. The Personnel Committee recommends the addition of Peggy Savage and Cindy Schumacher to the list of approved substitute custodians, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Who was the second on that? Joe?
John. Administration recommends acceptance of a letter of resignation from Caitlin Southard, effective with the end of the 2021-2022 school year, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And then I need to make a motion to amend the agenda to add the ability to post for the high school guidance counselor position.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Are there any questions?
Well, I think we should add also for item B, posting for that as well. So the cafeteria position and the one you identified.
Oh, okay.
And the reason for the late amendment is we got the one resignation within, yesterday,
Yeah.
within the 24 hours, so it could not be on the agenda.
Okay, so I also make a motion to,
You can, if everyone's okay, we can
Oh.
just amend the motion you made to include
Okay.
both positions unless there's an objection.
okay.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now you have to call the motion to amend and then actually call the motion to post.
All right, so all in favor of the
Amendment.
amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And then you have to actually move to post the vacancies with the second.
Okay, so the Personnel Committee recommends posting the job openings for the cafeteria employee as well as high school guidance counselor, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And that's all for personnel.
Policy and procedure.
Item A, the board shall elect a board treasurer for a one-year term starting July 1st, 2022.
So we're going to make a
I
motion
think we need to,
Is that a motion?
Well, someone needs to make a motion identifying, I mean, you can either do this the way you would at reorg, you do not have to, you can open it for nominations, or someone could just simply make a motion nominating.
We have a motion.
Oh, okay.
I make a motion nominating Hal as treasurer for the 2022, 2023 year.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any questions or requests for credentials? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Now, for right now, the business manager is usually the assistant board secretary. So, but that's still,
Do you want to skip that then?
Well, it is not a school code required appointment.
okay.
This is your own internal policy, this is not a school code
Okay,
position,
so
so you can
then
skip it.
we'll just skip that then.
All right. Anyone have anything else for policy?
Assistant secretary.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just for signature. The board meetings will still be put together the way they are. It's just those times when Crystal isn't available and it'd be a document that needs a signature of the board secretary. Well, we'll just hunt down Crystal.
Perfect.
If nothing else, we'll move to transportation. Transportation Committee recommends the addition of Stanley McLennan to the list of approved school bus drivers. I so move.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The administration recommends approval of the following summer school routes. Dusher Mildred Lopez with Larry Hatton at $230 per day. Muncie Valley, Eaglesmere, and LaPorte area route, Dave Karpovich at $152.50 per day. And the Forksville Hillsgrove Shunk route through Donald Evans for $450 per day. And I so move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Nothing more for transportation.
The Administrative Compensation Committee recommends acceptance of the Act 93 agreement for the 2022-2023 school year, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions in regards to that? Roll call, please.
This is for agenda item 15A. Glossie,
Yes.
Derland,
Yes.
Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Jordan, King,
Yes.
McCusker, yes. Nolan, Stockdale.
Yes.
So we have 7 yeses and 2 not present.
Motion carried. Anything from the board, Heather? You have anything? Hal?
I have nothing to add.
Anthony?
A reminder, high school, elementary school, and our new AD that school's gonna be starting soon. Handbooks, please don't wait till July to just get us the first copy, or August, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Because if we
we're
don't get it
planning
in,
on
I'd like to get that in
July.
before,
I'll have them in
before
July.
kids roll in, so if we can look at it in July, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Aaron?
No, I think I'm good.
The only thing I have is I want to say on behalf of Sullivan County Little League, I think we had our last juniors game.
Yep.
Just thanks for letting us use the facility.
Couldn't get in the morning.
They had a good time, played it out the best they could. So,
Too bad the season isn't longer.
it would be, but we lose, like, it's just, it's in competition with everything. There's Legion Ball and Travel Ball and Little League
I
and,
didn't realize.
so, and,
You just got started.
family camping and vacation events, so it's hard to corral people past the school year. So, anyway, thanks for that. And, commencement was nice, went really well, I thought.
I have to
Good
say
weather.
that picture that was in front of the Sullivan was probably, that should be on US News or something. I mean, that was just,
With
Oh.
the flag in the background. and the teacher
American
and the
flag with
student
Shonda Devlin hugging
Oh,
Grace
yeah.
Betts.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was
It was a
an
really good-
outstanding picture. Yeah.
Is there any public input? We wore the rest of the public out, they left early.
Did any of the kids get on the All-Star?
If nothing else, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Okay, I have a quick meeting in the executive.